Hello, my name is Danny and welcome to the Thank Goddess podcast. I am the host of this podcast and I am so excited to have you join me today. Today we'll be speaking about how to awaken psychic abilities and gifts. And this is a topic that I am so passionate about as a psychic myself and someone who dabbles with energy work pretty much daily at this point. I really love to help others to awaken these gifts because I find that once you tap into your psychic abilities and you have more access to your spirit team and your higher self and to the divine, then life becomes so much more magical, life becomes so much more easier to navigate, and you're more able to make decisions from an empowered place rather than giving your power to outside forces. So that's what we're going to be exploring here today. I'm going to be talking about different types of psychic gifts because often I think, have this conception that psychic abilities are usually have to do with seeing from the third eye. It's really about having visions, right? Or being able to see into the future. And that can be part of it, but there's so much more to psychic abilities than that. And I want to talk about some of the ones we haven't really heard of before, so you can really identify which is your strongest gift. Now, some psychics will say that, only certain people are born with psychic gifts. And to a degree, I can understand what they're saying because I do feel like some people are more wired for energy work, for psychic work. And I even see that as an astrologer, I see it in people's birth charts. Like, for example, I have a lot of water in my chart. I have a lot of Scorpio. For anyone who's into astrology, I have Mercury, which is the planet of communication and thought and intellect. I have that in the 12th house, which is the unconscious, which usually has to do with psychic abilities. I also have Neptune very close to my ascendant. Neptune can definitely make you a lot more sensitive, particularly when it's in the first house or close to the ascendant. It really, in my opinion, it really says that you're an empath or you're someone who is highly sensitive. So I have a lot of clues in my birth chart which suggest that I am psychic, but there is so much more than just, I don't think there's a cookie cutter answer, even as someone who reads birth charts to say, oh, you're psychic. But I do see certain themes or certain placements which can indicate, I want to say, probably a more stronger inclination to go down the psychic route, or that this person is highly sensitive more than other people. But I really do believe that all of us to a certain degree do have psychic abilities, and if not, we all have an intuition and we can all strengthen that connection to self, like I said in the beginning, to help us to stand in our power and make really sovereign decisions, because we're able to source the guidance and the information that we need from within rather than from without. So I wanted to first off start about my journey to awakening my psychic gifts and abilities, because I feel like it's something that hasn't really come online until the past few years. But I would say, when I reflect back on my childhood, that I definitely did have some sort of intuitive psychic abilities. I was definitely tapped in as a child. I know as a child I was very, very, very sensitive, very sensitive. I am someone who identifies as an empath, highly sensitive. So as a child, I remember being very, very sensitive. And the thing with that I think really suppressed my psychic abilities for so long was because I could feel so deeply. I was in a family environment where there was a lot of abuse, there was a lot of toxicity. It was quite a painful childhood in a lot of ways. It was beautiful in some ways, like there's no attack on my parents at all as I say this, but there was a lot of dark themes in my childhood. And as a sensitive child, I didn't know how to handle all of that energy, particularly, like I said, I was an empath, so I could feel the pain. I could feel how toxic the energy, how low and dense it was. And because it was so painful, what ended up happening with me is that I completely shut off. I became numb. I became like the ice queen, which is so funny because I have so much water in my chart. Like I was saying, in my astrology chart, I have so much water, but the irony of that is usually water is tied to our feelings, it's our intuition. And I switched off. That water for me became ice. It became ice. I hardened. I became very, very, I don't know if I want to say cold, but I became very protective of myself, and I didn't feel things. I became very numb actually for years and years and years. It was almost like I had this false layer of protection around me, and I never used to cry. I didn't feel things. I didn't feel. I remember like I enjoyed watching sad movies because there was something in the movie that would help me to cry, but it was very hard for me for a long time to cry. Like I just didn't cry because I was so numb. And the reason, like I said, was because I experienced so much pain. I didn't know how to process it. So like I said, I just switched off. And then it was around 29, 30, that was when I started to get into personal development. I started doing inner child healing. And as I started healing, and in order to heal, I had to feel. So I actually started getting into embodiment, and I studied as an embodiment coach, and I really started to look at holistic ways to heal trauma because I had a lot of unprocessed trauma in my body. And all of that ice, like I was saying, that numbness, I started to slowly chip away at the ice and to move the energy so that I could become more fluid. And as I did that, that's when my psychic abilities started to come online more and more, because I was actually, for the first time, able to feel and be sensitive like I was when I was young. I was very sensitive, and the past few years I've been working to become sensitive again, or remember that sensitivity, or awaken that sensitivity that's so innate within me, but to not see it as a weakness, to not see it as, oh, I'm so sensitive, people are going to just abuse me and hurt me. No. It's allowed me to open more of my heart and to be more compassionate with people and to sense what someone needs without them even saying what they need. And, you know, being able to cry more freely and just feel what I feel, which can be intense sometimes, but in doing so, because I'm coming from a place of empowerment, like I said, I don't see it as a weakness anymore. We often have this perception in our society that sensitivity is like a weakness. And I would say that there's a big misconception with that, because we see people that, you know, maybe like cry easily or they get upset easily, and we're like, oh, you're so sensitive, right? Like you can't take a joke, right? We've heard that before. And I think more so what the issue is emotional immaturity. It's not actually sensitivity, because sensitivity is actually a beautiful thing. It's actually a beautiful thing because, like I said, it's the ability to like intuit what other people need. It's the ability to have empathy and compassion for people. It's the ability to have that even for yourself, you know, not to just like hurt other people's feelings or trample all over people without even knowing that you're doing so, because you're not even sensitive to another or to something outside of yourself. I think like the confusion comes with emotional immaturity, where people haven't dealt with their stuff and they get triggered by something and then they blow up, right? And then they blow up and they cause an argument, or they get really upset and it creates a fight, or they act really immature, they go off and they don't want to talk about it, and we go, oh, that they're so sensitive, right? But that to me is very different to sensitivity. That's more so unprocessed trauma, whereas like really tapping into sensitivity from an empowered place is like, I'm just in tune with the subtleties of what's going on around me, with the people standing in front of me, with the plants, with the animals, with the four elements. Like, I am sensitive to my environment, and I see that as a superpower and not as a weakness. So I really want to kind of get that across first and foremost, that I really have changed my perception on what it means to be sensitive, and I'm so proud to be sensitive today, and I'm so grateful that I have this ability, because it's really helping me in the work that I do today as a healer, as a energy reader, as someone who holds space for people. It has enhanced my ability to hold space, to heal, to perceive when I do card readings, to perceive the messages, because I have this sensitivity. So first off, understand that sensitivity is a strength, and that through your healing, through you coming into your power, through growth and working on your evolution into blossoming into the most beautiful, most whole, most magnificent version of self, that's actually how, in my opinion, you awaken more of these psychic gifts, because you come more into wholeness with who you truly are as a soul. So the next thing I want to talk about is the different kinds of clairs. So you may have heard of that term before, the clairs. So the clair essentially means clear. Okay, so when we talk about the clairs, we're talking about clear senses. Okay, so we've heard of the five senses like touch, taste, smell. So when we talk about clairs, it's clear seeing, it's clear knowing, clear feeling. So that's essentially what the clairs mean. I'm going to go through the most common ones today, so you kind of get an idea of how these psychic senses come to you, how they can appear, some different examples. And if there's anything that I don't mention here today, and you have one of these clairs and it comes up differently for you, I'd love to know. So let me know either in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to the audio version, you can always reach out to me on the socials. I love hearing from you guys, and to let me know like what kind of psychic senses you most commonly tap into and how it shows up for you, because I really find it so fascinating understanding how these different psychic abilities operate. And obviously, I can only talk about what I've learned through others, from what I've experienced through myself, and what I've heard from other people that I engage with. So there's four main common clairs that I'm going to speak about today, and the first one you've probably heard of is clairvoyance. So a lot of people think that to be psychic is to be clairvoyant, but I'm here to tell you that that isn't the case. I actually, as someone who is psychic, I rarely do see visions. That's not one of my strongest clairs. And I will also mention that most of us have, I believe we have all the clairs. I really do. I believe everyone has all the clairs that I'm going to mention here today. But I do believe that we usually have one or two that are the most strong. Okay, so you'll notice that there'll be like, when I speak about the different clairs today, there may be one that stands out and you're like, yep, that's me, right? And I find it's either one or two. Like for me, there's two of them that are really, really strong. Whereas clairvoyance for me is not, it's definitely not one of my main ones. I do sometimes have visions, but not regularly. I don't see things in my third eye very often. And that's often how clairvoyance is. Most of the time, it is through the third eye, which is, the middle of the forehead, in between the eyebrows, just above the eyebrows. Usually that is where the imagery or it can even be like colors or symbols. I remember after a woman's circle, I saw a blue flash in my third eye. That's clairvoyance. It can be like premonitions. It can be like even like deja vu, like you're like, I've been here before, I know this place. Sometimes it's dreams. Okay, that's a common one. A lot of people say they have a dream and then the dream will happen in real life, right? And it's almost like a premonition when they're dreaming. That very much is clairvoyance. If you have strong dreams, like strong vivid dreams, and you remember like there's images or symbols, that's a big one. Another thing I often will see with my clairvoyance is I see a lot of mandalas, so I guess that's symbols. So I see a lot of stuff like that. I've even had animals come, like it'll just be a very quick like glimpse of an animal. So I see it like that. I've also heard from people that sometimes it's in the peripheral vision that you see, you see the symbol, or you receive information from. It might not appear here, it might appear at your peripheral vision. Also, my grandmother, my nonna, she is psychic and she is clairvoyant. And for her, you know, we have this conversation because we both have abilities, and she actually sees with her human eyes, with her two eyes. She actually will see like apparitions. She'll actually see in the 3D, if that makes sense, like physical, in the physical reality. She sees like either visions or apparitions, or she'll see, she's also a medium, so sometimes she sees like, you know, beings come to her, and she sees them with her physical eyes, which is actually, again, a form of clairvoyance. So it doesn't always have to be with the third eye. The next one I want to talk about is clairaudience. So clairaudience is basically clear hearing. So from what I understand, I don't experience this one, but apparently it's when you hear a voice that might not be your own, right? So you can understand that probably a lot of people in mental institutions are clairaudience, which is really sad because our society doesn't really, you know, talk about psychic abilities, not something we're conscious of. So I do wonder how many people are in mental institutions and actually are just psychically open. But clairaudience is a sense where you're hearing from I believe the inner ear. So it's not necessarily from it could be from your physical human ears, but it could be from like deeper inside of that, if that makes sense. So the voice can sometimes come, from what I understand, from it could be your voice, but it might be a different tone. It could also be a different voice. It might not necessarily be that someone's talking in your ear, but it kind of, you receive it as if someone has spoken in your ear, if that makes sense. So that's clairaudience. It could be that, you know, I've heard stories of people like driving and just before they're gonna have a car accident, something in their ears like, stop, don't do that. And it's like a voice in their head that tells them like, go this way, or change that, or don't do this thing. And it will come at a point in time when they're about to make a mistake, or they're about to do something that could be really detrimental. So that's clairaudience. The next one that I really believe is probably the most common is clairsentience, and this is clear feeling. So a lot of people, particularly if you're an empath, but I want to distinguish the difference between clairsentience and empaths, because every empath will be clairsentient, but not all clairsentients will be empaths. So to be an empath, it's almost like a more extreme version of clairsentience. Clairsentience is when you can feel energy. So it's almost like, I say this a lot on the podcast, but like when someone will say something that I know is true, like it's like I can't really explain it, but I get like this chill or these goosebumps. So it's almost like I get this message through sensations in my body. Pay attention to this, what this person is saying. There's something in what they're saying which is for you. This is important, pay attention. And it's like I get this chill or goosebumps on my whole body. That's clairsentient. It's like you can sense energy. Maybe you walk into a room and you can tell that people have been fighting, but nothing's been said, but you can just feel the tension. So I want to just say the difference between an empath and clairsentient is that clairsentient, like I was saying, it's almost like you feel the energy, but you know that it's not your energy, right? Like you know that that thing that you're experiencing, like I was saying, when I get those chills or those goosebumps, I know that it's not me, it's not my stuff. It's just that something's happening where I'm like, oh, pay attention to that. Even when I do card readings, like I can feel the energy in my hand. Like it's almost like the card is telling me, pick this one, okay? That's clairsentient. I'm very sentient to energy. I do Reiki healing. I feel the energy. I can feel it in my hands. I can like feel the energy. Empath, when you're an empath, and I'm an empath, so I know the difference between the two. Empath is you literally take on other people's pain. You feel other people's pain in your body because the purpose of the empath is to transmute through the vessel. So often empaths, and a lot of empaths don't even, until they actually become conscious of what an empath is, a lot of empaths don't even understand that this is happening. This is usually happening subconsciously. This is like a soul contract that you signed up to before this lifetime, that you were going to come to this planet to transmute dense, lower energies. Okay, so usually what I see with a lot of empaths is that the empath will be put into situations, particularly I want to say when you're a child, like you will be put into a family that is, there's a sense of darkness in the family. There's a sense of like density, like lower energy. There's something in the family or even the ancestral line, right, that needs to be transmuted. There's something, I don't know, like, yeah, just like low density within the family unit. Often the empath comes in and you'll probably be like a very sensitive child, I want to say. I see a lot of empaths are highly sensitive and they're put into these environments. Like I said, there's something dark in the family, there's a dense energy, and the empath is there to bear light on that situation. So the empath is literally unconsciously absorbing, because they're so sensitive, they are absorbing all of the toxicity, all of the dark energy, and it can be very painful for the empath. I want to say most of the time it is very painful. And the empath is in their vessel, because they hold so much light, they are transmuting that darkness into light, into a higher octave. And so the empath is healing, the family is healing the situation. It doesn't even just have to be the family. Often empaths will be put in situations in their life where you are there, can be like a dense environment, a dense workplace, a dense relationship, and you are there to transmute that energy. You are there to raise the octave of that place, of that environment, of that situation, of the people. Okay, I know it sounds almost like you're a martyr, and this is what I see with a lot of empaths. They fall into like victimhood, like, oh my God, like why? And this was me for most of my life. I played the victim hard. Like I experienced so much crap that I was like, why do I keep experiencing these things, right? And I experienced a lot of darkness. And I could never really understand. Like I felt like hard done by. And it wasn't until I started doing work on myself and I started connecting more with source and accessing more of my higher self that I started to understand why certain things had to happen. And a big message I always get told is like, you signed up for this, you signed up for this, right? Whatever. Yes, I understand from a soul level I did sign up for this. But one thing I will say is I'm at a point now where I've done so much healing that I'm actually like at a point where I don't feel like a victim anymore. And I'm so grateful for all the experiences I had, all the challenging experiences, because it's made me who I am. And this is the thing that empaths really need to hear. You are not the victim, and you actually have more light in you than you even know. And you're here on this earth to, yes, transmute energy. You signed up for it, but also you're here to access more of your own light, and you do that by transmuting the darkness. This is the thing with empaths. It's actually, you're so much more powerful than you think, but the work for the empath is to realize that it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to stick up for yourself. It's actually okay for you to walk away from situations and put yourself first. And yes, you will get put into situations where you are there to, again, transmute. But I do find the more you come into your power, it's almost like the situations don't feel as heavy, or you feel more empowered in those situations. It's like you know how to handle it, you know how to come back to your own energy, you're able to transmute the energy faster. That's what I find, and that's why I'm so grateful that I've been through everything I've been through in my life, because it's made me who I am today. And I love who I am, and I love who I'm becoming. And it's allowed me to access more of my psychic gifts, because as we transmute dark, like I said, the more we're actually able to walk in the dark, the more light we're able to access. Everything in this life, in this 3D plane of existence that we're living in, is operating on the law of polarity, right? We're working with opposites. So the more you're able to go to one side of the spectrum, the more you're able to go to the other side of the spectrum, if that makes sense. So the more darkness you can feel and walk through and experience, actually the more light that's accessible to you. So really hear that, because this has been my journey. I've had to go through a lot of dark situations to get to the place where I am today, where I feel so empowered in my light. You know, I'm not afraid of like dark energy anymore. I even did like a healing session with someone the other week, and there was we can say like a dark energy in that healing session. And a lot of people can be afraid of that type of thing. And I can say now with confidence, like, I'm not afraid of the dark, because in that moment, I knew exactly how to handle that dark energy. And I just emanated so much love and compassion to that lost being, because I don't believe in good and bad. It's just that we're all operating on different octaves of consciousness. So when we think of a negative entity or being, it's just operating at a low vibration. And the more you come into your light, the more you awaken more of your consciousness, you realize that the light outweighs the dark. And there's nothing to be afraid of. There's no ghosts, there's no beings, like dark beings that can have power over you unless you give your power to them. And like I said, the more the empath, or anyone, doesn't even have to be an empath, but the more you stand in your light, it's like your light becomes so radiant, nothing can touch you. Nothing can touch you anymore. And you can walk into dark situations, people that have ill intention, and I guarantee you, the more light you hold in your vessel, it's like that darkness, it cannot withstand your light. You just become this light bearer, and it's almost like that which doesn't serve you will fall away. Like they can't, dark entities or people that have ill intent, they will not be able, hear this, the more light you embody, they will not be able to withstand your light. It's almost like shining, you know, when you see the sun, like you come out of the darkness and the sun's like, you know, so bright, like it's you can't even open your eyes. That's how you appear etherically to beings of low vibration. It's like you just repel that which doesn't match your light. And so that's a message to all the empaths out there. Like, I get it. You know, we do often suffer a lot in this lifetime, particularly earlier on in life, but there is so much power and light through that if you can be empowered through those situations. Not see it as I'm a victim, but see it as a learning on how to embody more of your wholeness and your light. And you're like, wow, actually I went through all of these things, but guess what? They've made me so resilient, so strong. They've opened my heart so I can have more compassion, more forgiveness for people that are doing the wrong thing, right? That's the real power of the empath. So I really just wanted to say that, bit of a side note, but to not feel like a victim, because I see that a lot with empaths, that they get stuck in that victim consciousness, and then they keep attracting those situations, and it seems like they can't get out of the cycle. But you're here to break that and realize, like, you have the power. You can walk away. You're more powerful than you think. So always remember that the light always outshines the darkness. The last clair that I really want to speak about, which is quite common, and this is another one of my main ones. So I'm clairsentient and I'm claircognizant. So I want to talk a bit about claircognizance. What is that? Claircognizance is clear knowing. And the way that I receive it is like, it's literally like thoughts or ideas, and there's no way of me knowing things, but I just know. It's like you just know. And I get this a lot, and I remember having claircognizance even before I started healing. Like I always had it. I had this strong, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just like this, like I get these like lightning bolts, and then I just do the thing. And they just come as like a flash. and I just know things and I have no idea how I know it. I get a lot of financial advice, like it's really random, but I get a lot of financial advice through my claircognizance. I was never into investing. I'm someone, I love studying, but I love studying like metaphysics, I love studying astrology, I love studying spirituality. I can study all day long. I do. I'm always learning, always doing courses and things like that, reading books, whatnot, but I'm not that interested in like business, you know, investing money, like things of the earth plane. I've never really been so fascinated with that sort of stuff. But it's funny because it seems like one of my spiritual lessons in this lifetime is, yes, I am psychic, I do have certain gifts and I work a lot with energy, but I'm also learning how to, I guess, apply that to the material plane, like to actually be more in the 3D world. And a big one for me has come through investing, because like I said, I was never interested in investing. There was like no part of me that wanted to get into like stocks and cryptocurrency and whatnot. And that is a message, like I always get financial advice that comes in, which is so random, because that's why I know it's not me, because like I said, I'm not Danielle, the human sitting in front of you is not really interested in learning all that stuff. But I get lots of messages that will tell me, they tell me, go invest in this, or go research that, or go have a look at this currency, this crypto coin, blah blah blah. Like I get a lot of messages what to do with my money, where to put my money, what I should research, when to invest, when, you know, I get a lot of downloads like that, which is so random. I also, the reason I started my women's circles was claircognizant. Like I literally got a download which was so clear. I was like just going for a walk and boom, it was like, you need to start running women's circles. And I wasn't even feeling ready to run. I wasn't even thinking about running women's circles. I literally had been to like 2 women's circles as a guest, and I got this download, you need to start running them now. So when I get these messages, they're so clear. There's like no doubt in my mind of what I'm receiving. I just go out and do the thing. So after I got that message, I went out and organized my first circle. Within a matter of weeks, I just went out and did the thing. This was back in 2022, and I've been running women's circles since 2022. So it's been almost like, it's been 3 years now and counting. So that was claircognizance. I've also, when I moved, I used to live in the Middle East. When I moved back to Australia, I wasn't even thinking about moving back to Australia. Like I was happy overseas. Like I was not thinking about moving back. I woke up in the morning, boom, lightning bolt, moved back to Australia. So I was like, okay, I called my family. I'm like, I'm coming back. My family was so confused because they're like, really? They're like, but you weren't even thinking about moving. You know, it was so random, but like the message was so clear, like move back to Australia. So I literally like quit my job the next week, moved back to Australia. Like it was just boom. And this is the way it works. It's like it comes into my head and then I just have to do whatever I get told. Like it's so, like I said, there's no doubt, it's just clear. And sometimes I can even feel, because I'm clairsentient, I actually can feel the energy or the idea or the thought. I can feel it come into my crown. Like I feel energy moving down into the top of my head. So I don't know if that's related, but I do feel it coming through like that. And what I would say with the claircognizance is it's very quick. Like I said, I see it like a lightning bolt. Like it's just boom, boom, boom. Like you don't have to, it's not something you question. It's just like a clear thought or idea or knowing. It's just very, very sudden, and very direct, but there's no doubt in your mind that this is true. There's another couple I'll just mention quickly here, and the first one is, I can't remember the name of it, but there is one which is clear smelling. So some people actually can smell, like they smell a scent and the scent is not there. So it could be, I see this a lot with mediums. So mediums are people, I'm also a medium. Mediums are people that connect with beings in other dimensions, you might say. And it happens a lot with mediums where they can smell, like, say for example, like their deceased grandmother always wore like a certain perfume. Sometimes they will just get a waft of that perfume, even though like there's no perfume being sprayed. It's just like the smell comes, and it might be a reminder from the deceased loved one, like, hey, I'm with you. Or the grandmother's like giving a reminder, like, I'm here. Because often we think like when we die we cross over and that's it, but a lot of the time what I see is that a lot of our loved ones do stay with us on the other side, in other dimensions. It really depends how it works, but a lot of the time when people cross out, they stay or they keep an eye on people in their family, because often we incarnate as souls, so we're always interconnected whether we're physically incarnated or not. So I see that happening a lot. There's also a clear tasting. So some people even will get, like, they might look at a photo of someone and then they get like a bad taste in their mouth. Like it could be, that's their psychic sense, like it's through their taste, or maybe they get they start tasting something, like if they know if it's something they can trust or something that they should watch out for based on the taste that's arriving in their mouth. So that's even another psychic sense. I've never met anyone who had that. If you do, I'd love to hear from you, but that's also another psychic sense. So what I'm trying to say overall is that there's so many different psychic senses, and we're also unique and different. I really do believe that we all have them, like we have all of them to a certain degree, but I do believe that there'll be one or two that, you know, are most prominent for you. Like I said, for me, it's like clairsentience and claircognizance. They're my two main ones. I know that, like, without a doubt, like that's how I receive information. So it's just a matter of figuring out how you receive the information most dominantly, and then working towards building that muscle where you're becoming more sensitive to the subtleties of how that information is flowing in. Now, I want to mention here how we awaken our psychic senses, okay? And you know, I'm not going to give you, like, there's probably so many people that you can listen to that tell you like, oh, do this, put this on your third eye, listen to this mantra, do this meditation. But I think the true way to awaken your psychic senses is to heal the chakras, particularly the lower chakras, so the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus. Those are the three centers I find that are most blocked for people, like collectively, humanity. And if you can really get those more clear in balance, then that's going to awaken more of the higher chakras, which will allow you to access more of your psychic gifts. Another thing which is important to know as well with psychic abilities is that the vessel, like our body, is really important to, I guess, how pure what we receive is. So it's a matter of purifying the body as well. Okay, so some people will talk about going on certain diets. I know there's a lot of talk about like being vegan can help, or fasting can help. I definitely think having a clean diet is important. I find exercise is really important. I personally eat meat. I've gone kind of between the two, where I've like gone a bit vegan and now I'm eating meat because of my blood, but I've got some blood issues, so I'm eating meat constantly, but I'm still able to access my psychic ability. So I think you have to work out, maybe it's a kind of trial and error, but I would say definitely like cleaning up your diet is really important. Like if your body isn't in a good state, it's very hard for you to be like that pure vessel for the information to flow through. Okay, because the thing with psychic information is that it's coming from a higher source, we can say. So that's why I say cleaning out the lower chakras will help you access the higher chakras where the information comes from. And this was something that was always kind of known with ancient priests and priestesses. They were always purifying the body, or making sure they were purifying the body. And not just, like I said, I just mentioned now with like food and exercise, all of that, that's important. But also through purifying the mind, through purifying the emotions, like really ensuring that your body is a temple. It is a sacred temple, and the more you treat your body as a temple and you're really mindful about what comes in and what goes out and keeping it pure, like when I say pure, I mean like you are cleansing it of any toxins, of anything like negative beliefs, thought patterns, trauma. Like the more you can purify your body to its original essence, like you were as a baby. That's why Jesus always spoke in the Bible about like becoming like babies, because in a sense it's talking about, Jesus was talking about returning to purity, like purifying the body from all the conditioning, all the crap that, you know, really gets put on us as we get older as humans. And so as we purify the body, it allows the information to come through more clearly. I want to talk a little bit about how we cleanse some of the chakras, okay? Because that's really important, like I said, the lower chakras. So how you know you have an imbalance, and this is probably going to show up with everyone, okay? It's something that we have to constantly be working towards, particularly with all the conditioning that we are fed on this earth plane. So the first one is the root chakra. So that has a lot to do with our security, our survival, our basic human instincts. So this one shows up a lot with when we have scarcity, when we're living in fear, okay? Particularly around not having our needs met, when we feel afraid to move, to you know, maybe we've outgrown a job, but we're afraid to leave because we're afraid that if I leave, then I might not get another job, or I might not, or maybe we're in a relationship that we've outgrown, but we're afraid of what's on the other side. We're afraid of the unknown, right? And there's this, when the root chakra is imbalanced, it has a tendency to hold on to things. Okay, and we can become very greedy in that sense. It's like, I need more money so I feel stable. There's not this trust that things can work out. There's not a trust or faith in a higher power which says I can get my needs met. It's an ungrounded energy, and that's why it's really important. Like a lot of people don't want to do work on the lower chakras because they're not that exciting, or so we've been told. But like having a strong root chakra, it allows you to connect to your roots, essentially. It's what the rest of the other chakras like rely on. So you can really reach higher levels of consciousness by rooting into the earth, by grounding down to feel stable and solid in who you are, not by what you accumulate. And knowing if something leaves your environment, that it's all good. Like if I spend this money, say I need to buy a new car, okay, maybe that's a big investment for me. Knowing like the money will come back. Like I can let go of this money. Like everything in life is giving and receiving. That is just the nature of reality, okay? And when we block the flow of one, we're blocking the flow of the other. So if we're not giving, we're blocking the flow of receiving, and if we're not receiving, we're blocking the flow of giving, okay? And so it's really about having trust in having our needs met, and feeling abundant, and feeling like we have enough, and feeling stable in, like I said, who we are, not relying on the external world for that stability. So that's a big one to work through in order to access more of your psychic gifts. The next one, and this one is huge. This is, I think, like probably one of the biggest issues I think collectively we're facing, is like the wounding of the sacral chakra. So the sacral chakra is our sexual center, and this one's been hijacked like for so long. Like you just look at the state of the world. What people don't understand, I should do a whole other episode on this because this is like a whole rabbit hole we could go down around sexual energy. People don't understand what the sexual energy is for. Like really, we haven't been told from a metaphysical perspective like how powerful our sexual energy is. Yes, it is the energy that creates babies, right? We know that. But I don't think most of us think about that from a metaphysical perspective. Like we are literally, particularly women who have a womb, those who have a woman, we are bringing souls, beings that are non-physical into the physical. That is alchemy. That is alchemy. Understand that the womb is alchemy. You are creating a human in the womb. That is amazing. That is the most sacred thing in this life. Okay, this is the pinnacle. Like the fact that we can bring souls into physical matter. Like really digest that. Really think about how holy and how sacred that is. And we as women, and this is why I do this podcast and I talk about the divine feminine, is that we don't even know in today's day and age how sacred that is, because the womb has been under attack for centuries, right? Women hate their cycles. Women are not in tune with their cycles. Women are going on birth control to stop their cycles. Women are now saying, I don't want to have children. I don't want to earn this sacred part of myself. And I'm not saying you have to have children, but what I'm saying is there is nothing more holy than a woman's womb, because none of us would be on this planet without the womb. None of us. Okay, man or woman, you came through the womb. So there needs to be a reverence for that. And guess what? Mothers in our society are not paid anything. We pay sports players ridiculous amounts of money, celebrities, doctors, whoever, people delivering the babies, right? The doctors. But what about the woman who's actually birthing the child? What about the woman who's carrying a child in her womb for 9 months? Like, what kind of compensation do women? I'm not saying we should get paid for that, but what I'm saying is we do not revere women. We don't revere the womb. And this is not just men, this is women as well don't revere the womb. And this is why we need to talk about the divine feminine. Because what is divine feminine energy? It is that. It is the bringing forth of children, essentially. That's a huge part of it. That's why there was such a reverence, like, you know, back in goddess culture, before we had a patriarchy, like the woman was revered because she was bringing through babies, and children were always seen as the most holiest things on this planet. And I believe that without any doubt in my mind, that children should be protected and children should be the most important thing in our society. And why is it that teachers get paid like one of the least amounts of money on this planet? Why is like early childhood leaders are not getting paid, not getting compensated, you know, compared to say a sports player? Like, why is that? Because our culture is inverted and we do not give reverence to the womb. And so that's one aspect, shadow aspect of the sacral, particularly for women or people that identify with the divine feminine energy. That's what a lot of us are here. If you're a divine feminine on this earth, or you're like identifying, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are, right? The goddess consciousness, divine feminine consciousness, we need to reclaim the womb power, and say, I am worthy because I have a womb. Like, this is holy, this is sacred. And to start respecting that and honoring that. That's so important. So that's one shadow aspect of the sacral. And I see it a lot with women. And we have this hypersexualization at the moment, you know, where particularly since the feminist movement, you know, there's this push for women to be like liberated sexually. But that damages the sacral for women. Like, our womb is tied to our heart. It's actually impossible for women to truly enjoy sex, in my opinion, without opening their heart. So if you're like sleeping with whoever and you're not receiving that honoring by the masculine, that actually damages the sacral. And we have to understand that all of us are interconnected, and this is like a big wounding in like the collective consciousness of the feminine, of the divine feminine. Now, if we're to talk about the masculine side of things, right? Like, you know, men are not even honoring their own sexual energy, because truly the point of the feminine is to awaken the heart of the masculine, right? And if women are disconnected from their hearts because their sacral is so wounded, right, by not receiving that cherishing and honoring of the womb space, then the woman or the feminine cannot awaken the heart in the masculine. And what we're seeing on the planet today is a lot of men disconnected from the heart space, and that's why we're seeing so many wars. That's why we're seeing so much like destruction, and just, you know, we don't care for things anymore. It's all about ego and money and who can, you know, get one up on this. And it's like, at what point are we going to see that this way of going about this shadow masculine culture that we're living in, it's like, this is not working. This is not working at all. So I think I just went on a bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to talk a bit about like how the woman's sacral has been heavily attacked for many generations. But aside from that, to speak more generally about like this hijacking of our sacral energy, the sacral chakra is our creative energy. Like I said before, it's our ability to create a baby, right? So man and woman come together, we can procreate with that energy. So we need to understand that we're not just creating babies with the sexual energy. We can create anything. That's our manifestation energy. It's through the sacral center. Okay? We birth things into existence, and we do that with our sexual energy. So anytime you're looking at something and you're giving your emotion to something by what you see, you're actually giving your sexual energy away. And that's how most people are living. And you have to think, we're living in a world which is very much always trying to grab our attention, take things from us, right? Social media, how many people are scrolling on social media and watching the news even? If you're watching the news and reacting to the news, if you're getting angry by something, you're giving your sexual energy to that. If you're seeing something that you like and you're lusting after that thing, then you're giving your sexual energy away. Okay, so we have to kind of understand how the sexual energy works. And when we give it to something else that we're not conscious of, we're actually co-creating that thing. We're actually giving our life force to that thing. This is how powerful human beings are. And like I said, our energy is being hijacked by, you know, I don't want to say higher powers, but say the powers that be right now. So it's very important that we become intentional about what we're consuming and how we're going to use our sexual energy, because we can actually transmute our sexual energy. And the more we transmute our sexual energy, the more life force and vitality that we have, we're actually able to manifest what we actually want in our lives. Okay, rather than depleting our life force all the time, which is what most people are doing. Another thing to remember is when you climax, right, like orgasm is so powerful. Again, we're not told, like, yeah, it feels amazing, right, but like, what is behind all of that? It's actually from a metaphysical perspective. That energy connects you with God, which connects you with source. A lot of people, when they orgasm, they say God, oh my God. Why do we say that subconsciously? Because we know we are connecting with the divine. So you have to understand, when we bring through a child, that child comes from the absolute. Okay, it's coming. It's a pure vessel coming through us, right? That's how we deliver a child. It's a pure spirit, pure as in it hasn't been touched. When we climax, we let go of the reason why it feels so ecstatic is because we let go of the false self, and we let go that, like, when you orgasm, you're in like a complete surrender, right? And that's why it feels so good, because it's like, oh my God, I remember who I am. I'm feeling the ecstasy of God, of the divine, of the universe. And that's the energy that creates babies. So through that energy, you're able to manifest so much. And the problem in our culture is, because we haven't been taught these things, people give their sexual energy away, sleeping with whoever. And when you climax, you actually hook into the energy of, say, if you're having sexual intercourse, you're hooking into the energy of that person. And that's not just a one-time thing. Like, you energetically are connected for lifetimes, for eternity. Okay, and that's why cord cutting is really important. Like, to be mindful that sex is so powerful. And again, I should do like a whole other episode on it. but it's so powerful that is why there's so much hijacking happening. The other spectrum of it, like I said, there's a whole hypersexualization with like celebrities, like, you know, we're constantly pushed towards being sexual and not seeing how holy sex can be, right? Like I said, it connects you with God. The other spectrum is like the whole religious dogma where it's like, you know, you don't have sex until you're married, purity culture, and people feel shame around sex, right? People feel shame around lust. When, again, sex is a natural thing. There's nothing wrong with sex, but you want to be intentional about how you're having sex, who you're having sex with, because like I said, it's your manifesting power, it's your vitality, it's your life force. And you don't want to be giving that to everyone and anything. You want to be intentional where you're directing it. We don't have to be, you don't have to take my advice. But what I'm saying is, if you want to create the reality that you want, if you don't want to keep getting hooked in to other people's vibrations, be mindful about that, because it's super duper powerful. So the sacral energy needs to be healed in order to access more of your psychic gifts. I went on a whole tangent. I feel like I need to do another episode like just on the sexual energy. So let me know if that would be of interest. The next thing I want to talk about, the last chakra that needs cleansing, is the solar plexus. So the solar plexus, this is, you know, healthy ego, I want to say, but the way that it gets distorted is, you see it a lot with politicians, right? Is that sometimes it gets inflated. So this is when people feel like they have a bit of a God complex, like I'm so wonderful, I'm so great. Now, that's one spectrum of an imbalanced solar plexus, but on the other end, and this is something that a lot of people don't see as something that needs healing, and I see this more so than having like a God complex, is people that go on the other spectrum where they feel like they're not good enough, that they don't have the, you know, self-esteem, self-honoring to actually like stand up for what they believe, to go after what they want, to stand tall in their truth, you know, because we do need, to some degree, like this healthy sense of self, like having dignity for yourself. And so a lack of dignity, a lack of self-worth, self-esteem, not feeling like you can achieve the things you want, that you can manifest the things you want, or they can have that, but I'm not enough, or you don't have the willpower to actually like, you know, charge after what it is you actually want in this life. That's an imbalance as well. So these are the three centers that really need cleansing. These are the ones we need to work on. I really emphasize the sacral today because I feel like that one's like really just warped in our society at the moment. I think that one needs a great deal of attention. But all of them, root chakra, scarcity, lack, where do you feel like you can't have your needs met, greed, then of course you've got the sacral, which is like lust, feeling shame. Even the sacral can be like feeling unloved, right? Because it has a lot to do with our emotions. So like, yeah, I feel like a lot of people haven't processed a lot of their emotional stuff, and that's all getting stored in the sacral chakra. That's why I see a lot of women with womb issues today, because again, like the divine feminine is so uncherished in our society that like women are just like internalizing so much within the sacral, which is correlates with the womb. And that's why we're seeing such a rise in PCOS, endometriosis, infertility, like all of these issues with the womb. It's like it's really a disconnect from the divine feminine energy. And then of course the solar plexus, right, which is again a healthy sense of self, a healthy self-esteem, a healthy willpower to go after the things we want. So these are the areas I think we really need to focus on in order to awaken more of our higher spiritual gifts and psychic abilities. So the last thing that I'll finish off with, I did mention before that really, in order to access more of your psychic abilities, you want to purify the vessel. So I did mention before, diet, exercise is important, eating whole foods. But more so than that, it's about purifying your mind and purifying your emotions. So making sure that you are taking time to heal trauma, to work through limiting beliefs, negative thought patterns. All of this helps purify the vessel so you can access more higher truth and more of your psychic gifts. And another big thing I mentioned earlier in the episode is that there's so many things that are trying to distract us right now, particularly with the rise of AI, technology is increasing, we're all on our iPhones, all on the apps. All of this is taking you away from accessing your gifts, your own intuition, your own knowing. And it can be really hard to notice the subtleties of energy when you're giving all your attention to something outside of yourself. So the best thing you can do is come back to yourself, spend time alone, spend time in nature, spend time in quiet, and learn to become aware of how certain things feel in your body. You might like to start a journal. How does it feel after you spend time with certain people? Do you feel energized? Do you feel drained? How do you feel after you spend time in an environment? Do you feel energized? Do you feel drained? How do you feel after, you do one hobby or one task compared to another? Noticing these subtleties, noticing what you dream about, and maybe writing them down and seeing if these things do come into fruition. Noticing the thoughts that you're having, noticing if there is anything that you're picking up on that feels like guidance or feels like has a higher energy to it. I feel the more you can kind of carve out time where you can tune into how that feels in your body, it's going to be different from person to person, the better off you are at awakening more of these psychic gifts. Because remember, they already are in you, it's just about awakening to those senses. It's about accessing more of what is already there. And it's like going to the gym, it's like working on muscle, right? You got to show up, you got to be consistent with it and make time for it. And even setting the intention, you can always ask your spirit guides, we'll have a spirit team to help you with accessing more of your psychic gifts. That's always a possibility. They're just waiting on the other side for you to ask for help, and they're more than happy to help you. They just can't interfere without you asking for it, because they have to respect your free will, which we all have. So I think that's everything that I wanted to share on this episode. I hope that it resonated with you. I hope that it gave you some food for thought. If awakening more of your psychic gifts is something that you want to do in the future, and I think now is the time with a lot of these energies heightening on planet Earth. We are evolving spiritually, and there is more light coming onto the planet, so it is easier to access these gifts. So now is the time. It's just a matter of, is this something that you want to put your energy, your willpower towards? Okay, because like I said, if you're always reaching for your phone, reaching for distractions, fueling your body with junk food, or just toxins that just are not serving you, that they're not serving you, right? Because it doesn't feel good in your body, then a lot of that is actually taking you away from accessing more of who you are, which is divine, which is sovereign, which is whole, which has all the answers within itself, and it doesn't need the outside world to validate, to heal, to fix, to receive answers. Like, you have everything you need within you. It's just a matter of remembering that, and like I said, purifying the vessel to restore it to its whole state, so you can receive more of who you actually are and really embody more of your Christ nature or your divine nature in this human vessel. So that's all I wanted to share here today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any comments, suggestions of future episodes you'd like to see in the future, then let me know. If you have any of these gifts or abilities that I've spoken about today, I'd love to hear your experience with them. If anything resonated, then definitely let me know. I love hearing from you. And until my next episode, take care, my loves, and I will see you in the next one. Mwah.